Okay, my friends, I am going to open back up my mudfossil.com site, and we will have the anatomy and the light and particle physics, and we're going to have all the soft tissue and how you can figure out what was preserved and what is actually in that, and then all the stories of the past and the chemistry and the health and biology and all of that stuff. Now, this is a statement about what you will learn at Mudfossil University, and it's free. And John Slutton down in the Amazon is working with the Shipibo Nation down there, and I'm hoping that he will treat this basically like a university, coming out of these indigenous people that understand these things have legitimacy and should be looked into. And they are rare among the people that I run into. And they are very interested, and I am interested in assisting in any way I can. Now, nothing here will be said that has no material support. I don't opinions. I'm not. If it's an opinion, trust me, I'll let you know. Uh, Opinion or denial or delusion is your realm. This is not for you. Research here is always material, including DNA, experiments, chemistry. The only way to learn is to engage factually, not just to dismiss it, not just to say, go read this book or so and so said this or that. We're going to look at the actual evidence. A day in the mud searching for rocks to make a wall and finding a doorway to a new universe. That's what happened to me. All knew everything, 100%. Nothing like I heard. We got giants and titans, and myths are reality, and even light has mass and is energy and comes from the sun and is the dark matter until it hits to be light and heat. We now live in a completely different place than we were led to believe. Now, I'm going to have all different features here and there. I don't know how, but anyway, and then the DNA report will be here. So you'll be able to come up here and see the DNA report, and then I'll post things that have relevance. So that's the way it's going to go. Now, Comet 67P is back in the news, and I did a video on that long ago. Now, this was the second video I did in 2017 because the first one was not well received, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It actually made me shut down my sites and everything, to be honest with you. But anyway, this was the second video where everybody that's been with me knows that I say the Earth is literally biological. Hold on one second. I think I got Tyson here. Yeah, here's Tyson's site. That's a bilipid membrane. Get any anatomist, any first year biology student. Now watch this.
Biological here. Look how this just wraps around and curves. And then it comes into this.
Look at this. Look, see that? That's the lower layer of the bilipid membrane. That's the upper layer. It's this thick. In between is what they call aqueous lipid solution. It's a fatty acids or liquids in between these two layers so they can move around. And then you're going to see all these channels and so forth. That's Scott Wiles. Tyson Carlson is the one that is really working this site. Scott and Tyson were working together. Scott moves around, so Tyson's so cool. Really, look at this. Look at this. That's the thickness of the lower layer of the membrane. Tyson.
Yeah. Geologic. Isn't this cool? Oh, this is just lava. It's just a lava sheet, yeah.
There's somebody telling him, so, yeah, look at that, it's lava. He says, yeah.
No, this ain't lava. This ain't even the same material as lava. This is more sandstone.
Look at how big that is, and that's the ion channels that go through. I show this very well, and so does Tyson. So let's go on to the video about Comet 67P, because I'm saying right now I believe everything in the universe is biological. 67P absolutely is in my world, and I'd like to have somebody show that I'm wrong. I've looked at the chemistry, I've looked at every bit of it, as much as they have probably. You know, I mean, obviously they have more evidence and more access than I do, but I know what I'm seeing. Okay, now I did my research back in 2015 when they actually landed on. I watched the whole thing. I was very close to this thing. Now, this is just a year or so ago. What did they learn? Well, they didn't learn what they should have learned. I can tell you that right now. I'm going to play this to start of it, and then we're going to go back and forth. What do they think now, even after 5 years, and what did I think then, and what do I still think? Because I still think the same thing I think then.
The Rosetta
as I
Philae
do now.
spacecraft that visited 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko was perhaps ESA's most ambitious mission. Launched in 2004 and arriving in 2014, it spent 2 informative years around the very interesting looking comet. Although not everything went to plan, the data that Rosetta and Philae were able to collect about comets has changed our perspective of what we understand about the formation of the solar system, and even about our home planet, Earth. The data will continue to be examined for years to come. But what have we learned so far? I'm Alex McCall.
All right, we're going to find out in a minute. All right, I'm going to go kind of quick through the beginning, and then we're going to get into some pretty good detail. But they looked at these gases and the dust and so forth. They could pick up on it. And they determined there were 16 different organic compounds. Well, what does organic mean? Let's just let them play what they have to say here.
Surface material examined, it was determined that there were 16 different organic compounds, 4 of which had never been detected on a comet before. While organic compounds do not mean life, life is based on organic compounds. While Philae wasn't able to get too many readings from the surface, Rosetta was able to get some samples of the comet by collecting some of the dust snow that was ejected away from the comet into space.
All right, they're talking about the dust snow, and that when they bounced around, it went flying off. However, watch the light particles that are everywhere when they face into the darkness. The identical same particles John Glenn saw.
One of the most impressive shots Rosetta was able to take is this video of dust particles and cosmic rays shooting off in all directions, with background stars moving in the background. All the particles are visible here because Rosetta is looking at the night side of the comet.
It's looking at the night side, so it is no... The light is passing behind them. The light is coming from this direction in. So they're looking at these particles being illuminated by light passing by the actual particles. Some of them are bigger particles, and some of them are actually down in the photon range. And that's what John Glenn saw. He saw them all around him. And they go in every different direction. They're not just moving in one direction.
Comet, meaning increased exposure can pick up these interesting visual elements. Throughout the mission...
Anyway, that's... if you look at John Glenn's video of the fireflies, the exact same thing. He saw the same thing. Now, let's see what I claim Comet 67P is. All right, this was back in 2015, and this was about 67P. I did. That's before it was my old channel, Mudfossils, which I got rid of anyway. And I showed what 67P was, and I went in pretty good detail. I went down to show the bundles of muscles and so forth. What this is all about. Now, see that? That's a bundle of muscles. These are the little pinchy things that when a bundle of muscles gets cut, That's the little bundles there. Now, these are the tendon fibers. And they checked these and they found out that not only do they hit the surface in this pattern, they go into the surface because they're tendons. And I come out to here to show it. This ball at the bottom is an anchor. This is where muscle fibers are going to run up here, but there's some tendons ran up. This is abrupt transition areas where it starts to go into muscles. And I'll show you. They scoop into the tendons, and when they rip out, they leave these, well, I'll show you. All right, here's how the tendon balls form. They mineralize in the centers, and then they have sort of a different structure as they pull, and this gives them that's what the anchor is. That's an anchor. The tendon balls are the anchor. Now this huge gigantic 67P got pulled out of something because it is basically an anchor with a neck on it, and then that would have gone up to muscle. All right, now this shot, I believe this is some kind of a bone was coming out of here. And this is where the muscle broke off that would have surrounded that bone. And then the tendinous neck, those fibers, and then into the ball that anchored in some meat somewhere. Now, there's also a chunk that comes off the side. I have one here that's identical to the piece that's off the side. And there may be some relation. I show that in one of my videos. But like I say, I think that might be a bone coming out of there. And then that's where it's the tendon ball locked in, and the tendon fibers ran up to surround the bone, and then the muscle ran from there, which has gone. Now this basically would be the ball at the bottom, and all of those little pock marks you see are these like eroded balls, and all the fibers coming out, which you see go up to muscle, which comes up above here. And that's just the way they embed in the body. All I can say is, as you will see, we're dealing with something nobody ever expected. Okay, so that's the channel I closed up. Right about this time I had to close it up because of attacks. Oh, confrontational. And that's me. I tend to deal with situations in an aggressive way, hostile, argumentative. However, listen to this. I thought this was very interesting. He distanced himself from the confrontational approach adopted by his predecessor. Well, why would the predecessor have such a confrontational approach? Because the predecessor was me. I have taken a non-confrontational approach now. I am just going to show what we have. Prior to this, I had to get confrontational and nasty. And I've been oh, you're arrogant, you're this, you're that. Well, yes, absolutely. I push my way in. I want somebody to fight back. And they still don't fight back. What are you going to do? So I get more and more abrasive and more loud and more assertive and more arrogant. And then they still don't fight back. So I've decided that the only people that are going to see this are the people that are willing to see it. The rest, I'm done. You know, that for me, I'm going to non-confrontational. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, they haven't learned anything about Comet 67P. Now, I am going to start this right from the beginning. This was the second video I did after I made my comeback back in 2017, and I remodeled everything, called it Mudfossil University. Now, here goes. Biological creatures, and I do have the evidence to support it, and I do have DNA tests. I shut myself off, and now I turn myself on. Alright, I'm going to be referring to things of enormous proportions that were biological creatures, and I do have the evidence to support it, and I do have DNA tests and everything. Now I'm going to show you something that will shock you, I'm certain, but it's true. This right here that I'm pointing to is what's considered a tendon. And it's a flap of a tendon, and it's the long, sinuous part. And then these straps come around, and then there's a little tiny ball. if you can see that, right at that end of this tendon tip. You see that? The strap comes down, and there's the ball. All right. Underneath, right down here, was where it is ripped from. That's where it's supposed to invest into here and hold on, so that this tendon can slip and slurp through here and pull against muscles and bones and so forth. Now, you notice what this looks like. And this is what they look like in gigantic, enormous creatures. That is the strap. That is the ball. The tendon mat was here, which is, in this case, eroded away. Now, there was another ball here, and they'll be all over the place, and those are eroded, but this is particularly easy to see. Here's another one here. They come in enormous quantities. So this is Arches National Park, I believe. And you saw before, well, you saw the tendon mat and the balls going in. It's just what it is. And that's all down in Peru and everything. These are some of the biggest. This is Arches, yes. And Tyson Carlson, in his location, has not this size, but I mean, it's absolutely enormous. I mean, this thing is just wildly enormous. I don't know what to say. And I'm not, you know, it's a shock. It's a shock. Nobody expected this. I'm not saying to go, oh, how'd I miss it? Nobody's eyes were big enough. It just happened to me that I don't know what happened. Yeah, so it's not just there's one here and there. This is the typical distribution of them. They are everywhere. Mm-hmm. And if you look over here, this is the way they find them on Earth. They are gigantic tendon balls, and that's all there is to it. They're from creatures. And the ones that are like Devil's Tower are Achilles tendons of giants that were standing up, drowned in the mud. Their tendon is in the ground, and the stalk sticks up, and there is what's called an abrupt transition, and that happens right about here. There's several of them, but it happens right about here at that little wrinkle, and this stuff all breaks off out of here because it's involved with the fleshy tissue, and below is the fibrous tissue, and that is what remains. And that is why this is the type of thing you see here, and this is what you see at Devil's Tower, is this bottom piece. Now, so I'm talking about gigantic creatures. Huge creatures. And these are those, you see right here? These are the tendon hex columnar basalt, they call them, but it has nothing to do with volcanoes. It's from this. And the reason they stay separated, because there's fascia around every single fiber in your body, every single cell, actually. You know, I was showing something. At this point, I didn't realize it. For some reason, I was looking at the back of this, and I see coefficient of friction. And synovial joints in humans is 4 times slipperier than Teflon. That's what this stuff is. And the fascia coatings, there's synovial fluids, and it's so slippery that they can move. Every one of these has to move independently to the other ones, otherwise you get bound up. And you know, stiffness. That's why you get up in the morning, you stretch, and you pull all those bundles back and forth to the other ones, and then they sort of start to fluid up a little bit. I worked with Gil Headley about fascia. Nobody understood this. Really, I'm not kidding you. Nobody understood it until I worked with Gil Headley back 2012, 13, 14 in that area. And now they say they realize this interstitium, and which is everywhere. That's all interstitium around here. All interstitium. They never realized. They used to call it fuzz. Anytime you see fascia, that's that interstitium. And anyway, a lot of stuff has come out of this research. Okay, these are all the chemistry on these different particles. They called it Kenneth and Juliet on the Philae lander. They checked, and it's all CH1, 2s, and 3s. That's hydrocarbons, methane gases, which is from blood, basically. And then you have all the metals in the blood, iron and silicon, sodium and carbon, hydrogen. I mean, it's just, it's exactly the same chemistry as the body, as it cooks. Now, if they compared it to the same stuff here on Earth, it's going to have the same sort of stuff: silicon, calcium, magnesium, iron, aluminum, and they say all the exact same stuff. I'm not making this up. Now, what are we looking at here? This is mud fossils. Well, what is sandstone? What is mudstone? And what is limestone? First of all, sandstone primarily is grip skin. It's the really coarse silicon, heavy, dense in silicon. You see the Si, the red silicon, much more dense than inside the body because it's the grippy stuff that it has to contact, and that's why beaches and so forth have that. Then you come out with all the other chemistry that's in the body, and the limestone, which calcium is where that is. But when you get into the mudstone, you're in the fleshy tissues. A lot of blood, mud. Mud is blood. That's what it is. Then you get into limestone, where you're into, more of the tendinous material. That's the sinuous material in your body. And these are the chemistry of it. Now, to make it easy for you, it's clay is your mud and mudstone. That's your bloodyish area. And then you get up, they call it marl and calcareous and all this business. And what it is you got bones, and you got tendons, and you got muscles, and you got tendon balls, and all that stuff is all. And then by the time you get down into the lime and the limestone, that's pure tendon. That's pure blocks of tendon. All right, this is what makes up comets. And these are the different minerals in it. Magnesium, iron, silicon, other, which is aluminum and all the other stuff. And then you've got carbon and oxygen, hydrogen. Now, when you break it down to what it means, mineral is the metals and so forth, which is in your blood. And so all that stuff is in your blood, and it's also part of the chemistry of your body. And then they go organic, which is these acids, amino acids and so forth, which indicate life. That's what's in these comets. All right, this is a little bit confusing, but the light is absorbed and emitted from things, obviously. Things, when you shine the light on it, they heat up, so they're reabsorbing it, and you can see them, so they're emitting something. Well, what are they absorbing? They absorb, this is hydrogen. It absorbs all of those frequencies, and it emits only these little bitty frequencies. That's hydrogen. Now, then we come down to carbon. Here's carbon, these two blocks. Carbons absorb all of these different frequencies, and they emit these frequencies. Now, why? Why are they emitting these exact frequencies? Why aren't they just emitting things? And why do they emit them? All right, now you go down to oxygen, and then you can see you have another signature. And that's how, when I say signature, you can see that they're different. But this is going to stay the same. Oxygen does it. If you see this signature in these different frequencies missing or emitted, you can say, well, that's an oxygen. Now, what they're doing about this redshift and all that business is they're seeing these same patterns, only they're seeing them move more to the red, which means, really, literally, it means they're slowing down. They think it's because the galaxies are spinning away from each other. It's not because they're spinning away and pulling it open. It's coming and slower, slower, slower. That means it's going to get redder and redder and redder. But they're going to still say in these same sort of patterns. So that's the redshift doesn't work. The galaxies expanding from each other appears not to be the case. And they show the newest pictures of, well, let's look at it. They're claiming they're using this to claim that the universe is speeding away from each other. I say no, the universe is locked together as like a gigantic molecule. These appear to be galaxies, and these appear to be the regions that the galaxies affect. All right, that's their sphere of influence. When these lock in with other ones, they glow brighter because they're pushing to shoving more, and they are locked in, or they appear to be locked in. Now, in a gigantic world, these would be molecules. In our world, these would be molecules. They look like exactly what I expect in molecules under electron flood theory, which says that the nucleuses are completely composed of electrons, which are dipoles. And then there's a bunch of dipoles floating around, but these are in numbers that make them stable. And they're the same numbers you see in the periodic table. Right, and that makes them stable, and then they lock in with other atoms to form molecules. This looks like what it is to me. We're in a very strange new place.